"Are all your children safe in bed?" That's what she asked, right before paddling her kayak back into the blackness of the lake. We were deep in the Ontario wilderness, completely alone. Or so we thought. I work summers as a camp counselor in the northern parts of Ontario, Canada. On the date this particular incident occurred, I was camping with a group of 10-year-old boys on the same lake the summer camp was based on. So, like a routine camping trip, we canoe out to the site and set up our tents. My co-counselor Mike and I take turns supervising the kids while they swim, build forts, and play games. We cook food over the fire, sit around and tell stories, roast s'mores, the typical Canadian camping experience. Around 9:30ish, I tell the kids it's time for bed and they head into their tents, which were positioned a short walk from the shoreline, but still in line of sight from where we had the fire pit. So the kids are in bed and Mike and I are sitting by the water, chatting, smoking a cigarette, just hanging out before calling it a night. What happened next still troubles me to this day, and it's become my go-to scary campfire story. We were both gazing into the pitch-black water when we noticed a small light approaching us, slowly, just above water level. We speculated for a few minutes. What could it be? Then it came close enough for us to see. It was mounted on the front of a kayak. Someone was paddling toward our campsite. Now, it's important to note that as camp counselors, part of our training includes how to deal with strangers while responsible for a group of children on public land. I was ready to give the usual polite but firm speech that we were with a recognized organization and would respectfully ask they find another campsite. But as the light drew closer, the sight of this person shook me to the bone. Paddling the kayak was a woman who looked to be in her 60s. She had incredibly long, stringy gray hair trailing in the water. Her skin looked like old leather. Her eyes, lifeless, almost hidden beneath the deep lines in her face. She stared directly at me, and when she spoke, I saw she was missing most of her teeth. "Are all your children safe in bed?" she asked, pointing in the direction of the tents. Not knowing how to respond and completely freaked out, I told her yes, they were fine and that she needed to leave. She smiled. "That's good, just as expected for this time." Then, without another word, she turned her kayak around and paddled off into the darkness. Mike and I just sat there. We were legitimately shaken, not only by her appearance, which resembled something out of a horror movie, but by the way she asked about the kids. It was chilling. Not knowing what else to do, we checked on the campers, then grabbed our hunting knives and sat by the fire for a while, keeping watch. But that wasn't the end of it. About half an hour later, things got worse. Across the lake, a female counselor was leading another trip with kids in the same age group. I got a text from her. It said something like, "Hey Sean, stop screwing with us. This isn't funny. My kids are really creeped out." My stomach dropped. I immediately called her and explained that I had just seen someone near our site and that I wasn't playing a prank. Apparently, one of our campers had opened their tents to go to the bathroom and saw a woman with long hair standing on the shoreline, arms stretched wide like she was waiting for them. We stayed on alert the rest of the night, and though we never saw her again, I'll never forget that voice, that face, and those words. "Are all your children safe in bed?" It was the summer of 2016, and I had just married my longtime girlfriend. Over the course of our 12-year relationship, we had traveled to the mountains several times, both in summer and winter, for camping and to stay in nice mountain hotels and snowboard the slopes. Naturally, we both agreed this was how we wanted to spend the first few weeks of our marriage. We booked a 20-day stay at a mountainside campground on the other side of the country. We brought our dogs too. They love being outdoors, and we usually bring them camping anyway. After 2 days of road tripping, we arrived, quickly set up, and settled in for a long stay on the mountain. It was beautiful. A couple of days into the trip, we had already met a bunch of fellow campers. We're experienced, so we often attract attention from newer campers needing help or supplies. We're always happy to share matches, creamer sugar, even help setting up gear. It was around day 4 or 5 when she made her presence known. I'll refer to her as she or her because we never learned her name. We were sitting under the shade of a big pine tree, drinking beers and playing cards when she just appeared out of nowhere. "Can I pet your dog?" she asked. Even the dogs hadn't noticed her approaching, and the sound of her voice startled them into a frenzy. Since they were already worked up, I politely told her no. Then she just stood there, at the edge of our sight, silent, not staring at anything in particular, just standing. I asked if she needed anything. She said no, and after a few long, weird minutes, she walked off. Now I work with people who have brain injuries, so I've seen unusual behavior and poor social skills. I wasn't ready to write her off as creepy, but she had my attention. I watched her walk into a site across the path, a few spots down from ours. There was already a small tent there, set up the day before by 2 young women. She pulled a single-person tent from her backpack and set it up in the corner of their site. That day, we didn't see the girls again, and they didn't return that night. The next morning, I was walking to the camp showers. As I passed their site, I saw her sitting inside her tiny tent, reading, door open. I didn't think much of it and kept walking. On my way back, her tent was zipped up, but it was moving. Someone was clearly inside, and that's when she made her presence known in a very big way. As I got closer, she unzipped the tent, and I saw she was completely nude. She positioned herself in the doorway and did this exaggerated full body stretch, pushing her chest forward, moaning in what I can only describe as an obviously performative way. Yeah, I kept walking. Back at our site, I told my wife what had just happened. We both laughed it off and headed out for a hike to a nearby waterfall. The trailhead was accessible from camp, so we didn't need to drive. We walked the 2 kilometers there, stopped at the entrance to take some photos, and rested for a bit. After maybe 5 minutes, she emerged from the same trail. At first I thought, okay, coincidence, it's a public trail. But when she saw that I saw her, she froze. Just stood there, same deadpan expression as before, not doing anything, just watching. I turned to my wife and said, "I think we have a stalker." She looked where I was looking, and yeah, now she was creeped out too. We tried to brush it off. Maybe she was hiking the same trail, no big deal. But as we continued walking, she stayed behind us. Not close enough to be social, just trailing. Even our youngest dog was unsettled, kept turning around to watch her. So I decided we'd stop for water and let her pass. But instead of walking by, she stopped too. Just stood there again, motionless. That's when the, okay, this is seriously messed up feeling kicked in. We decided to cut the hike short and take the shorter loop back. Every time we rounded a corner and were out of sight, we jogged to put distance between us. We didn't see her again until that night. My wife had gone to the showers and came back saying the stalker was in there too, but this time she was with 2 girls from earlier. They were clearly getting ready for a night out, and the stalkers seemed to be trying to tag along. My wife could tell they didn't know her. They were trying to ditch her. They told her they were meeting at a restaurant when we knew it already closed. She kept asking, "Are you sure that place?" And they kept insisting. After the stalker left to finish getting ready, the girls started mocking her. My wife couldn't stand it. Creepy or not, she called them out for acting like bullies. That's when they explained. She had just moved into their site while they were away for a night. They were trying to make her feel uncomfortable so she'd leave, but she wouldn't. My wife asked why didn't they report her. They shrugged it off, said they were leaving the next day. What happened between them that night, we don't know. But at 3 a.m., we were jolted awake by a blood-curdling scream right outside our trailer. The dogs were barking. My wife was trembling. I peeled back the window cover just enough to peek through. And there she was, standing motionless. She made direct eye contact with me through the tiny gap in the shade. My heart was pounding. After what felt like forever, she turned and walked calmly back to her tent. I got up and locked the trailer. Eventually, after a stiff whiskey, we got back to sleep. The next day, our friends arrived from the city. We were excited, but they hadn't been at our site for 15 minutes before she appeared. Just poof, she was there. This time inside our site. She asked if she could pet the dog again. The dog was barking at her and I said something like, "She's not being friendly right now, so I'd prefer if you didn't." She just stood there, staring at me, like she was calculating. Then she noticed my friend's tent, the same model as hers, just bigger, and said she could help him set it up. He declined, asked for his tools back. She held a hammer, then gave him a cold, blank stare, and dropped everything. Then ran off. I told our friends the full story. They were now officially on high alert. That night around 11 p.m., she showed up again. She said, "Hey, you guys have an extra room with a tent and a camper. Do you think I could stay with you tonight? We could have some fun in there together." My buddy, full of day beers, replied, "Did you just propose a group situation?" She smiled, looked down at me. "I like your friend," she said. Then she turned and disappeared into the woods. We were done. I decided one more creepy interaction and I'm calling the park warden. Later that night, walking to the bathrooms, my wife grabbed my arm. "Babe, look." The site she'd been on? Wrecked. Garbage, food, clothing, everywhere. Tent? Gone. She had vanished, left chaos behind. A park patrol happened to be nearby. We explained everything. Her behavior, the squatting, the stalking. They said they'd investigate. We didn't see her again for the rest of the trip. Until the very last day. There's a lookout point near the campground with stunning views of the valley. We went to catch the sunset, a beautiful send-off to an otherwise perfect honeymoon. And there, in the distance, my wife spotted her, standing in the woods, watching. She walked up to the mountainside and sat silently on a boulder next to us, said nothing. My wife had a brilliant idea. She asked me to take one last photo of the view and gave me a little wink. I understood. I framed the shot so she would be in it, just in case. After a few minutes, we got up and left. We never saw her again. Looking back, we both agree. This woman clearly had serious mental health issues. She lacked social skills and tried to make connections, but went about it in all the wrong ways. That said, she crossed every line imaginable. The stalking, the midnight screaming, the staring, the dangerously strange behavior. It was terrifying. To our honeymoon stalker, let's not meet ever again. Hey, if you've had a terrifying experience in the woods or just a creepy story you want heard, I'd love to share it. Leave it in the comments or email it to MrLiminalStories@gmail.com. Your story might be featured in the next video. I originally shared this as a reply on Reddit, and a few people told me I should post it somewhere more fitting. So here it is, one of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my life. A few years back, my girlfriend and I, after hiking several parts of the Appalachian Trail, decided to tackle the southern portion in Virginia. It's about 166 miles long and cuts through the George Washington and Jefferson National Forests, from Roanoke County to Pearisburg and Giles County. This section is known for being one of the more remote, less traveled parts of the trail. Exactly what we were looking for. We gathered our gear and made our way to the Virginia Creeper Trail to start our journey, planning to wrap things up in Damascus. The idea was simple: hike hard, disconnect, and by the time we got to the end, we'd be more than ready to get home and crash in our own beds. It was early October. The leaves were changing, the air was crisp, perfect hiking weather. The scenery was beautiful, and the first several days were uneventful, just your standard hike. But that changed in the last few nights. That's when things got weird. Now, on this section of the trail, you're supposed to camp on the trail itself or at designated shelters, but we weren't in the mood to run into anyone. We didn't want people stumbling on us in the middle of the night. So we ignored the suggestions and found our own little spot, off-trail, in the middle of a small clearing. It was perfect. We set up camp, made some food, talked for a bit, and eventually settled in for the night. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to my girlfriend shaking me, whispering, "Get your gun. Someone's outside walking around our tent." She said she'd woken up to what sounded like someone dragging a knife or something sharp along the side of the tent while slowly circling it. Now, I always carry a 1911 and a judge when we hike, just in case. We were in a remote part of the woods, and you never really know who or what you might encounter. I grabbed the judge, and we sat in silence, listening. At first, just the wind rustling the trees. And then, we heard it. Something or someone was walking behind the tent. I grabbed my flashlight and carefully stepped outside. The fire had gone out, so it was pitch black. Only the faint October moon offered any light. I told my girlfriend to stay put. I didn't turn on the flashlight right away. I didn't want to reveal I was out of the tent. I waited. Then, it sounded bipedal, the way the steps were paced. I flicked on the flashlight and lit up the woods. I thought I saw someone duck behind a tree, and I shouted, "Hey, get out of here! I'm armed!" Gun drawn, light steady, I stepped forward to where I thought I saw the movement. That's when I heard it from my right. Running. Footsteps tearing through the woods. I spun to face it, then heard another set of footsteps running from the original spot. I wasn't chasing anyone into the woods. I went back to camp and told my girlfriend what had just happened. Then I sat guard outside the tent until the sun came up. The next morning, I searched the area. I found a boot print in the soft dirt. It was mine and it wasn't hers. I confirmed it. Someone had been out there, circling us. I didn't tell her. I didn't want to freak her out any more than she already was. We were deep in the trail and still had 2 days left. So we walked faster than usual, covering as much ground as we could. That night, I found a spot near a cliff where we could place the tent under a small overhang. No way anyone could sneak up behind us. But all day, I couldn't shake the feeling we were being followed. No proof, no sounds, just a gut feeling. We made camp, ate, and went to bed. I gave my girlfriend the 1911 and kept the judge next to me. I told her if I did sleep, I'd be doing it with one eye open. Hours passed. I stayed awake, listening. Eventually, I must have nodded off. I woke to the sound of someone rummaging through our stuff. I grabbed my gun, woke her up, and told her to stay quiet. From the dim glow of the fire, I saw it. A silhouette. Someone outside the tent. I shouted, "We are armed! Get the hell out of here!" Whoever it was bolted. I burst out of the tent, gun drawn. Our gear was strewn everywhere. They'd gone through nearly everything. I walked to the edge of the woods. There was a creek nearby with a narrow tail beside it. Down the creek, I saw it. A lantern. Flickering light. Then, 3 more lights emerged from the woods. That was it. I told my girlfriend, pack what you can, we're leaving now. We grabbed what mattered, left the tent and whatever else, and booked it back to the trail in the middle of the night. As we hiked, I kept hearing movement in the woods. Branches snapping, whispers. I kept looking behind us. And then, just as the sun started to rise, barely any light in the sky, I turned around. There was someone standing on the trail, just watching us. I couldn't make out any features, just a dark silhouette. I stopped and called out, "Who are you? What do you want?" No answer. They just stood there, then turned and walked back into the woods. We moved fast, no more stops. I don't think I stopped looking over my shoulder until we saw the parking lot. We got to my girlfriend's car exhausted, but alive. We made it out of the Virginia woods without becoming a meal for some clan of inbred backwoods hillbillies, which honestly is what I was picturing the entire time. I don't know who they were. I don't know what they wanted. Maybe it was some sick prank. Maybe it was really something much worse. All I know is this. I'm not going back to find out. Let's not meet. So, to preface, I'd like to say this story is probably going to sound like the plot of a campy 1980s horror movie. And yeah, it's long, but every part of it is true. If we hadn't been 5 miles from cell reception, and if things hadn't ended the way they did, there'd probably be a police report to prove it. I'll be changing names, locations, and a few details to protect people's privacy, but the core story? Exactly how it happened. A buddy of mine and I try to camp twice a month now that I've got a vehicle that can handle some of the more remote areas in our state. We'd planned a trip for the weekend of February 18th, 2022. We picked a remote location we'd camped at the week before. That weekend, we hadn't seen another soul within a mile of our sight. Friday night we arrived, set up camp, no problems. The story takes place Saturday night. It's around 9 p.m. The sun's been down for a while. The moon hasn't risen yet, so it's pitch black. Our only light is the fire. And then, we hear a man screaming. My buddy and I exchange a look at first. We think it's someone drunk and rowdy, but quickly we realize it's not that kind of screaming. This wasn't laughter or pain. It was anguish, desperate, unhinged. I want to remind you we're 5 miles into the woods. No signal, no roads nearby, no people. The screaming went on for what felt like forever, but it was probably 5 solid minutes. We were freaked out, no doubt. We gathered up everything even remotely resembling a weapon and started speculating. Was someone hurt? Was it an animal attack? Were we about to be part of some Deliverance-style nightmare? About 15 minutes pass, we're still on edge. Then, suddenly, a flashlight and a lantern appear, slowly moving toward our camp. I nearly fall out of my seat. Before I even see the guy's face, I call out, "How's it going?" The man responds, flat and calm. "Can you guys do me a favor?" Me and my buddy respond together. "That depends on the favor." The man walks into the firelight, mid-30s, normal looking. He asks if he can just hang out for a second by the fire. Now, it's 2 of us, 1 of him, and we've got all our gear and weapons within reach, so we cautiously agree. After a moment of awkward silence, I ask, "What the hell is going on?" He stares into the flames and begins a story. "We were just hanging out, man. We came up earlier today and my buddy just freaked out. Started screaming and just wouldn't stop. Then he lunged at me. I told him to back off, chill, but he kept coming. It got violent. I thought he was going to kill me, so I grabbed my car keys, the lights, and ran. He chased me when I ran. I didn't know what to do. We didn't have firearms or anything, but we did have a hatchet." My buddy and I lock eyes. This is getting serious. Then it hits me. "Wait, he chased you? Like he's on his way here, right now?" The man just nods. And right on cue, we hear screaming, maybe 30 to 40 feet away down the trail. "I just want your fucking balance, Gary. I want your balance. Gary! Gary, where are you?" I have never heard someone scream like that. It was shrill but deep, brutal, and deranged. The way he said Gary swung wildly, sometimes a long drawn-out wail, other times a choppy, growling bark. We kill all our lights, stay dead silent, and listen. By some miracle, he doesn't see our camp, keeps walking down the trails, screaming into the night. We stay with Gary by the fire. He tells us more. They were under the influence of something they'd brought on the trip. His buddy, who we'll call Ty, was fine for the first few hours, then just snapped. Ty started ranting, became convinced Gary had something he wanted, his balance, like the mental state he was in. He thought if he could kill Gary, he could steal his good trip. The screaming continued on and off for over 2 hours. By now it's 11 p.m. Moon's coming up. It's below 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Ty, according to Gary, had no jacket, no flashlight. We were too drunk to risk driving miles to a signal tower in icy conditions, and Gary was still tripping too much to drive. So we made a decision. Stay put. Watch the forest, hope Ty sobered up or passed out. And he did. Oh, he did. After about an hour of silence, we hear a voice again, 30 to 50 feet away. "Hey! Help! Please help me, I'm lost!" We tell Gary to hide just in case, then we get up to greet Ty. I've got my 12-gauge shotgun in hand, .40 caliber pistol on my hip. My buddy's holding his AK-style rifle, his twin pistols holstered. Flashlights blazing, we spot him walking into the edge of camp. He's a big guy, 6'2", maybe 300 pounds. We talk to him and he seems calm, remorseful even. He says he blacked out, doesn't remember much, and he feels awful. We decide he's okay to walk and escort him back to his site. Once we're sure he's safe and fires out, we return and let Gary know. Everything quiets down after that. The next morning, we check in on both of them. Gary got home safely. He's got a wife and kid, and we actually stayed in touch, planning a trip together soon. But Ty, who wandered into the woods screaming like a madman, maybe with a hatchet, hoping to hurt his friend for a better trip? Let's not meet again. From when I was about 11 to 14 years old, I had a best friend named Spencer. Spencer had a decent-sized family and a big house. We hung out practically non-stop outside of school. He was homeschooled and I was in public school. During the summer, I practically lived at their house. Spencer had an older brother named Keenan. Keenan was about 5 years older than us, and I thought he hung the moon. He was so cool. He listened to great music, played guitar, and I always wanted to be around him. One summer when I was 13, Keenan went to summer camp. He was supposed to visit the Grand Canyon, go kayaking, and do a ton of fun stuff. We were jealous. It was weird not having him around, especially since I basically stayed at their house the entire time. Finally, the day came when Spencer's dad was supposed to go to the airport to pick Keenan up. We were super stoked to hear all about camp. His dad drove up and we ran downstairs to greet them, and yet we didn't see Keenan. His dad had tears running down his face and explained, "He didn't make it. He didn't make it, you guys." My heart dropped into my stomach and I started to panic. Keenan walked up right behind him and they both started laughing. It was a huge jerk move. Anyway, we helped him unload his luggage and stayed up until midnight talking about his summer. He had so much to say. He said he had the time of his life and told us about how he almost went overboard whitewater rafting and how he surely would have drowned if he did. As two 13-year-old boys, we were enamored by Keenan and everything he did. We talked about how Spencer and I were going to go to the same camp once we turned 18. It had been a long day and it was time for all of us to go to bed. Keenan told us he would tell us more in the morning when we woke up. I had fallen asleep and awoken in a cold sweat because of a nightmare I had. In my dream, Spencer and I had gone about our entire day just as we had before, except when their dad showed up and joked about Keenan dying on his trip, he actually did die. This was practically my idol, and the dream was so vivid I needed to go get some water just to calm myself down afterward. I checked my phone before I headed to the kitchen. It was 3:30 a.m. The house was so dark and I had to tiptoe to be quiet and make sure not to wake anyone up. As I walked through the den on my way to the kitchen, I saw the moonlight spilling into the living room, the only light in the house. I saw what I thought was a large silhouette, and as I got closer and my eyes adjusted, I saw Keenan standing beneath the ceiling fan with his arm raised. I freaked out and ran across the room in a dead sprint, flipping the light on to see if my eyes were deceiving me. It was him, except he was asleep, standing in the middle of the room underneath the fan with one of his arms raised straight up over his head. I never knew Keenan to sleepwalk before, and luckily he snapped out of it before I tried to wake him up. He looked at me, super confused, looked around and noticed where he was. Then he said, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you guys. I guess I developed a bit of a sleepwalking habit at camp.